to go.
Now we're on camera. Yes. Well, yeah, this is vodka, just so you guys know. Nice big bottle of vodka here. Now, Tim,
I
those were
did not come
awful
equipped for
curse
this.
words that you just said. I can't
Oh, you
believe,
know I
Tim, that
don't use
of
that kind of
all
language. Don't
people.
don't
Oh my
put words in my
goodness.
mouth.
I never
Oh,
heard
so
such
I have
language.
enough snarky comments. I don't need to use the language.
and we're being recorded, so everybody is at the
Yes,
OK
yes.
button. All right. I guess we're getting started in three, two, one. Welcome everybody to the what month is this? March.
March.
I've kind of lost track of time. This month in LabVIEW, March, this month in LabVIEW called TMiLV. And this is a super, super exciting session that we have. It is going to be utter chaos. I just warn everybody ahead of time. We're going to have about six or seven, I don't know, eight people. How many of us are on the call right now
Eight.
talking about this amazing thing called the CTI? We'll explain that as we go. So, what is TMiLV? So, TMiLV is, and of course, I can't get my new monitor here is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So, all right, I don't even have my notes. So, no notes. We're just do this improv.
Freestyle.
Uh, so anyhow,
All that
we
planning
So it's normal.
are. What's
sound as
that?
it goes out the window.
So it's
All
normal
that
for us,
planning
though.
makes a lovely sound as it goes out the window.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Bye bye notes. Um, anyhow, we are the Lively Conspirators. There is the gentleman who made this happen. That would be Steve Watts, the professor of pragmatism. And then also Sam Taggart, who is the architect of adventure. If there's anything something new or interesting going on in software in general, Sam's your guy. Go follow him on LinkedIn. And I'm Nancy Henson, and I am the chief of Connected Conversations. I try to make sure that we actually have a conversation without too many rabbit trails. And sometimes those rabbit trails are my rabbit trails. We have a variety of guests here today. I'm going to introduce everybody kind of in a moment as we get going. Like I said, this is going to be chaos. And we welcome you
Controlled
guys to come on
chaos.
the show. Let us know if there's something you're really passionate about or excited about in the LabVIEW community and you want to be on the show. That'd be great. Let us know what you want us to cover. So that's our quick intro. Now, A block. First, quick thing to get out of the way because we have so much stuff to talk about CTI. A little bit of news from NI. So don't say any of this. Pretend that we're covered under NDA because this is all super, super secret stuff that nobody else knows about. I was so excited back in the day about a month ago when I noticed that Kristen Kanan was hired by NI to do some academic stuff. Kristen did amazing academic stuff at NI, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. She's fantastic. I noticed that Oscar Fonseca is doing academic stuff, if I have that correctly, which is also excited. And don't tell anybody, but apparently Emerson wrote a teeny tiny check of $8.5 million to the University of Texas. So if you want to go hear about the $8.5 million, go over on LinkedIn and go find Rudy Sengupta's profile, and you'll see where he talked about that. All this stuff's public if you haven't figured that out. All right. We want to start our conversation into CTI. You guys don't want to hear me talk anymore. We want to hear about CTI. So let's start off. Professor of Pragmatism, Steve Watts. I expect you probably spent a little bit of time working on this, and you probably had no idea how much time this was going to take. And we're super excited about your investment. But before you talk about that, I keep referring to CTI. So share with this group a little bit about what this thing is and what was your motivation to dive in and commit?
I think I'm a subversive problem solver, and the problem I saw was to do with the expense and difficulty of getting into LabVIEW as a and actually I think it was you that came back to me about it. So I initially said, why is it difficult to get training materials? It should be easy. It should be easy to get training materials, but because it's a commoditized thing, it costs money and it's all under license. So okay, how do you correct that? Well, you just make it open source. and do it for free. And that was a barrier to people doing training. So that started me thinking, and then we started, well, okay, we've got the community edition. That's license free for training and the like. We've got a few barriers. How do we deploy it? How do we do this and that? And so then went down the Linux route because we don't have to pay licenses. And okay, well, we got all this way of dealing with this and deploying this that we can actually do all for free, and we can all do it so it's all ready made, so that you can get down to the point of having everything to hand, and you just have to follow one scroll bar. So you start it going, I pull it into my computer, and then it's ready to go. We haven't quite got there yet, but we're not far off. And the feasibility is reasonably close, and it started an awful lot of other discussions, and the discussions then moved on. For me, the bit that I was enthusiastic about was, well, if I'm in a poor part of the world, how do I do this? How would I train somebody in LabVIEW? It seemed very middle to upper class as a egalitarian. It seemed like you had to have money and be in a moneyed place to use something like LabVIEW and to learn something like LabVIEW, and that didn't seem right to me. So
I'm gonna interject real quickly because that is one of the things that really got me jazzed up about CTI and excited about CTI. So I still have a day job. I still have to pay for college and all that fun stuff. But eventually, at some point, I will have a little bit more freedom to go down to this amazing little island, Guanaja, in Honduras, where there's just an incredible community. Getting there is not easy. They don't have this opportunity at all. And so being able to bring CTI, whether it's there, whether it's the juvenile detention in the state that I'm living in, so many different places where there's kids who have great brains and they're not exposed. They're not exposed to this stack of software that is pretty similar to the stack of software that's launching a few rockets here and there, which is also public information. So it is, I agree 100% with that motivation.
So then the next thing is that I wanted the training to have a hardware component. I get enjoyment. My enjoyment from LabVIEW isn't writing the syntax. My enjoyment with LabVIEW is rapidly seeing a light blink on and off, is rapidly talking and communicating to something. I'm still like a child and I still enjoy that. And, make a fan go, make a door open. I all of that is why I do software. And that to me, to my simplistic brain, I thought, well, if it got me, and it's going to get other people, and that's when I started talking to Derek, and luckily Derek had similar motivations, but on the hobbyist side. So we came together really, and I wanted to use something that I could emulate. So we had a long list of things that we wanted to do. So I've been going through essentially knocking down feasibility barriers. And sort of say, well, this is a barrier. Well, it doesn't have to be a barrier. This is a barrier. This doesn't. So
I think I just want to interject because
so Fab, I'm going to get to you in just a second. Okay.
No, just one of the things
yeah.
The biggest problem you solved, and I haven't heard you say it, and that's why I want you to say, is reduce the time from I want to learn LabVIEW to that LED turning on.
Yes.
That's the main thing.
Nothing like the blinking LED.
From a day to hours or minutes. So
well, you're right, because that could be literally hours.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It's it should be. It's and there shouldn't be a. So going back to the sort of the hardware side, I mean the real thing for me, well, the two things for me was the virtual machines and being able to load virtual machines, because that gives free access. And the other thing was the Pico Visa stuff that just allowed us to talk to a $5 piece of equipment as if it was a $50,000 oscilloscope or a $50,000, whatever. You're talking in exactly the same way, and that to my mind was very good training.
And we're going to come back to that and get some details on that hardware. And Steve, you've been doing a bunch of other really cool stuff in that space. I want to make sure, Sam, we get you in here as well, because you were very bold and kind of co-instructing when we did the CTI in a university setting. And it was 4 hours a day, 5 days at University of Colorado Boulder. And that was a really important process of us thinking through what does this content really need to look like depending on who's the audience. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning going on there. Trying to meet people where they're at is always challenging when you're creating training, trying to remember what it's like to be a beginner. I am actually going back there, and I'm teaching on Friday next week with Viri, but we're doing the not the CTI, but the NI hands-on. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I liked when we did it, we did a tiny bit of the NI hands-on, but we did a lot with the CTI stuff. So me personally, I'm more excited about software than hardware. And I think part of that has traditionally been that hardware is expensive. And if I want to teach a class with a bunch of people, doing CVOs or something, it's hard for me to have money to provide all the hardware. So I'm excited to have some cheap hardware that I can kind of start incorporating into some of that. I'm really excited about Labio and Linux in general. I think that's great. I despise Windows, if nobody has picked up on that already. So I'm very much for that, and I like the fixed VM environment because I know Fabiola's probably experienced this. Anybody who's taught a lot of classes experiences that managing dependencies and getting everything set up right and getting the machine set up right and getting the code to work on their machine can be challenging. And having a VM that's ready to go that they can just download and spin it up and everybody in the class has the exact same environment makes it a lot easier. So I really like that. So those are the things that I'm excited about.
Excellent. And I'm that person that it's like, yeah, wherever I land, it's always a Windows environment. And so that's kind of the world I live in these days. So, but I 100% go in Linux. That was absolutely the right way to go. We can back into some Windows stuff if we need to do that. Fabiola, it is so awesome that you have been back in the community, and your session at GDevCon in Stuttgart was absolutely fantastic. If people haven't seen it, it's somewhere on YouTube. Really excited that you are back. It was great you shared your story. You've been such a fixture here, and your energy and enthusiasm, it's just boundless. So one of the things that I really appreciate is you're doing documentation differently, because I'm old school. You guys saw me flubbing around. I can't even get anything working in Google Docs. Give me Microsoft Word, and you guys are going Markdown, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. Before we do the VM install, do you want to talk a little bit about that? We'll talk more broadly about documentation in a moment, but you want to just do a quick 2 cents on whatever it is you want to talk about here for a quick moment.
The reason I jumped in and did the Markdown is I work with Olivier Jordan. He's part of the board of directors at the DKMH Consortium, and of course, you guys know him from his Wobblelat toolkit on Antidoc. And that's based on ASCII doc, which is Markdown. And he had already done the documentation for DKMH. And we fought him, right? Because we really liked our method that we had that generated the PDF and the HTML and everything. But then I saw that it was easier. And then what happened was Enrique tried to convince the CTI team to go Markdown. And Steve was like, nope, we're staying with the open office documents. So I had the opportunity to train a young lady that I realized that she was an engineer and she was working at Walmart. And she has a permit to work and everything, but she's an immigrant. And she was told that engineers couldn't find a job. Engineers from other countries couldn't find a job in the US. And I was like, nope, that's not true. So I started teaching her with CTI. And we were using both the English and the Spanish version. And I realized immediately that whenever I needed to make a change on the English version, I had to pull the code. I had to open Office or Microsoft Office. I had to make the change. I had to push the change. Anytime that we found something in the Spanish side, I would go edit this page, make the change, pull request. Enrique would accept it, and it was published immediately. And I was like, okay, that's when I was sold, because she didn't have OpenOffice or Word on her computer, right? She was used to using Google Docs, Notepad. That's it. There was no Office on that computer. So going back to the minimizing the time from getting started and to going to an LED turning on, also being able to minimize the barrier of entry for contribution, and making it easier. The entry level for contribution is going to be, oh, I saw a typo. Let me fix it. Edit page, typo, we're gone. So that's why I went
And
that
that
way.
is a great illustration. I'm thinking about my friends in Guanaja, outside of Rotan, Honduras. They might not have the free Office tools. And then that's another thing you got to install. This is fantastic. There is very minimal. I mean, I really appreciate your point from I want to learn LabVIEW, and in 2 hours or 3 hours, I'm turning on an LED. And I think documentation is a critical part of that. So yeah, I was kind of fighting the markdown thing, but you sold me on it. You sold all of us on it. So I'm excited about that. So in the interest of time, we want to make sure we start the installation. So Steve, would you like to grab the screen, do a little sharing? And this also aligns with, Sam, what you were talking about is just the whole installation process here. You don't need Windows. You just need a laptop. And most of us can scrounge around and find a laptop, anywhere in the world. And so show us what this looks like.
Okay, so I presume you can see my screen. I'm using VirtualBox. I've always used VirtualBox. This has been tested in KVM. It's been tested in VMware. And there's a thing called an OVA, which is a open virtualization format. Which I
So,
like
Steve,
open.
I'm going to interrupt you real quickly. Just maybe a little bit of change on the resolution here, just a tad.
I will also make a comment. If you're using KVM, there is a trick to it, and I have some posts about it somewhere. So
Okay, I don't know whether I can change the resolution. I have no idea how to
Okay.
do that.
All right. We'll table that little impromptu conversation for a future show.
I can
Keep going.
I'll do the best I can. Anyway, so hopefully you'll just see me going through to my drive. I've downloaded this already. This is not currently the downloadable one. This is Lubuntu. The current one is OpenSUSE. And it's got a newer version. So this is LabVIEW 2024 Q3, which is a very good version so far. So you just open
Probably
that.
worth noting too the size of it there. You had it hovered over, would stop underneath 5 gigabytes at this point.
Yes, that's a good point. Actually, it's just open. So that is 4.6 gigabytes, which is
So
an
not
awful.
way different than like the 8 that we started out with.
Yeah, it's a lot lighter.
And then this is one thing I was telling Nancy before we started. When I was in Mexico and I was teaching an engineer over there with CTI, it all depends on your Wi-Fi connection. It took us a while to download that 8 gigabytes.
Yeah, so this is about half the size, and that makes a difference to G Central as well because they pay for all of that bandwidth. So it's a good job. Georgios has done a wonderful job on this. And Lubuntu 2404 is really nice. I had issues with 22. So this is now going, comes up a generic.
Now, Steve, I got a question as you're doing this. And then I'm going to do another quick introduction too.
Now it's just a progress bar.
I don't have to be an expert at Linux, right? Like,
no, you should. It should all be just there, ready to go.
And this version is much better, Nancy. The previous one, you still had to kind of find your way around. Georgios is doing a great job of putting links and shortcuts on the desktop. And we're also making sure there's pictures on the documentation on how to do the stuff that you may not know how to do on Linux.
Yeah, and it's this is going now, so you can see it's up to 3%. So this is just going to import it. And then we'll open it. You can see there's already one here I made earlier, but I'll do this next one as it comes in, and we'll report back. I'll stop my share.
Excellent.
I'll report back when something happens.
Awesome. When something happens. So I didn't get a chance to introduce you. Norm ! You have a little show that you started, I think. And I think you get to go hang out in the garage and build some Cool stuff. Do you want to talk? There we go. Much better. Why don't you talk a little bit about what your role is at maybe real quick on what you're doing at NI. Talk about your
It
CTI
stops. Is that what I'm
channel.
down to? 2 minutes or 60 seconds?
Take. All right.
10 seconds.
I'm going to start my watch. You get exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's 90 seconds. But now I've already shaved 5 seconds off of
The
that.
idea
So
is what
you've
I've got
got
right now.
85 seconds.
I'm currently software evangelist at NI. First time we've had one that specifically has that title, although there's many people like Nancy and others that have been evangelizing LabVIEW and NI things at large for a long time. It's supposed to be software evangelist, but of course I'm going to focus the lion's share of my love, full-throated towards LabVIEW. We are the LabVIEW company, as Ritu mentioned at last year's NI Connect, right? Very, very bold. And so, oh, look, Steve's already at 87%. So the thing that I've been doing recently is I'm doing some media creation. Part of that media creation is on a channel. It doesn't have a good name yet, but I've been focusing on getting people started with the CTI, but not just started with the CTI as it is, but there was a very small, we went to UT, to the Rocket Lab, and said, hey, Rocket Lab people, do CTI stuff, but here's some peripherals for $17 that you can connect to the CTI hardware that are different than the CTI hadn't identified. And so I've been helping help people that have a small kit like this lever it for $17, leverage the Pi Pico and the peripherals in it while exposing LabVIEW. And then my job as well, beyond just those videos that I've been pushing out, I've been having some fun with some other ones like burning Oreos and decoding chatbot conversations, whole bunch of stuff there. But the other part of my job.
Did you eat the Oreos? Did you eat the Oreos? Okay.
I did.
I got to go back and watch that.
So,
keep going, Norm.
But the other part of we're talking about hands-ons, and NI is very, 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 very interested in improving the evaluation LabVIEW experience, short-circuiting it to the degree where maybe we bring back the login to an AWS VM and we let people evaluate LabVIEW in the cloud with no downloads. And then also we have the ability to connect to real physical hardware around the world, as long as it's a network connected piece of hardware kind of thing. That's what we have enabled right now, that we're trying to figure out, hey, can we make it so that not only is it a fully virtual isolated VM that you're working with, that got my stamp of approval on zippiness and whatnot, but also can we give a virtual, real, hands-off on experience with some actual hardware. Once again, we've done things like that before. There's even like a little webcam pointed at C-Rio, pointed at some lights and some fans and yada, yada, yada. Once again, to enrich and accelerate that process of doing a thing as fast as possible. The problem is it doesn't come free, but we know that it is possible, and we're trying to see what's possible with that hands-on. But all the time while I'm looking at the hands-on SAM that you're going to be involved with, and you and I need to talk about that for next Friday, I'll be actually out there in the middle of the week. But the other part of it is I am carrying the CTI banner inside of NI. Like, we need to not leverage this. We need to invest in this. And so far I haven't gotten my wrist slapped on being involved in the time I've spent and the videos that I've created. Just basically I'm trying to be the CTI marketing person. Right? I've gone from LabVIEW dev to marketing, and so that's one avenue that I'm doing to do that, aside from pissing Derek off, asking him if I can use the code that he's created yet. That's a long story.
Yes, you can.
Go there and do that. But
I'm going to introduce Derek here. Anything else real quick? I was going to say anything else real quick.
Can I interject a quick little thing here?
I'm going to interject one quick thing before I introduce Derek or turn it over to Tim. You brought up something really important, and this is something that that Sam and I did at CU Boulder, and that is this hardware scenario. So everybody's going to talk a little bit more about the hardware and the fact that when we're communicating to the hardware, at least right now, we're using standard Skippy commands. But the kids at CU Boulder, they might have been hobbyists for a while, but they're going to be using an IDAC. And we very intentionally took one example that was 3 icons, talk to the device, and then switch it out real quick with the NI driver, basically use that same piece of code, and then talk to NI hardware with the thermocouple, so that they could see how that transition might look like. So it was important to get them more comfortable with the NI hardware, but start where they were, which is kind of in the hobbyist mode, and talk to our little $10 device. So I wanted to bring that up. That was important in that use case, maybe not every use case. Derek, you have been so kindly quiet there, and you did win the hair award today. I usually Steve, where's the purple mohawk? I mean, you're letting us down here.
He's
Derek,
too old for those now.
What's that?
He's
Peanut
too old for
gallery.
those now.
So those that have not met the rest of our crew here, we've got John. John, you're in the UK, right? Or am I missing that?
Yeah, no, over in Manchester in the UK.
Manchester in the UK. Okay, I did get that right. And then we got Tim, you're in the middle of the US somewhere, right?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Awesome. And then outside of LA, Derek, you're outside of LA, correct?
Yeah, I'm like 2 hours north.
Awesome. So if we look at the components here, because one of the things that we're doing is we're talking about what is the CTI thing. But we're also putting out an invitation and giving you guys a sense of how can you contribute to this, and then how can you add your own content to share with others, on and on. So basically, you got documentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Tim and Fab have a good demo. There's the VM thing. We've already seen that kick-started. Is it done yet?
It's
Is
done.
it downloaded yet? Yeah, it's done. But the real key piece here that we keep talking about, and that's the hardware. And so, Derek, why don't you take it away with sharing a little bit about where the hardware is today and the vision. And although some of us are real excited about the educational piece, you are super excited about the hobbyist DIY. Talk about hardware, firmware, and where you see this going.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna share a screen quick. Are you all seeing the camera over on my bench? Cool.
We got it.
So right now, we've got support for the Raspberry Pi Pico. And it runs on the Pi Pico and the Pi Pico W, although it's not supporting the wireless, the Wi-Fi connectivity yet. But basically, hobbyist level, entry level hardware support. Working on finishing up the first full release of all of the firmware and drivers and all of that. But ultimately, I'd like to expand to other variations of the Pi Pico. There's companies like Adafruit and SparkFun and Seed that all have their own variants of the RP2040 enabled chips. And then we'd also like to expand to the RP2350, which is the Pi Pico 2. And there's a whole bunch of boards around that. And they all have different features and connectivity. Some have wireless radios on them, long range radios on them. So really the landscape is quite large for what's available in the hobbyist market. And the lessons and everything are standardized on the base Pico, because having a standard platform is great when you're trying to get a room of 30 people all on the same page. But for the larger hobbyist market, and even beyond that, like even starting to use this professionally for simple IO for a simple computer-based application, kind of trying to expand what's available. I've got my own projects I want to do around the house, home automation, robotics, stuff like that. So really enabling those projects as well.
So one thing, I think it's in the pause clarification, Derek, can you level set anybody that's watching this is, kind of maybe watching this the first time? Like, we're not burning firmware with LabVIEW down to the device, right? I mean, I know the answer, but
so
just clarify the difference.
Is it my
Good
turn
question.
for a demo?
Yes.
I've already
Go for
forgotten
it.
the
Yes.
So as mentioned, I'm gonna change my screen sharing by doing this.
And one other item, and Steve, I got a question for you, because when I first got started, Steve, I had to go back to your blog post on the community, your Ramblings blog post, to go find out, okay, here's what I need to buy if I just want one board and put the Pico on it. I got one little device that I can toss in my laptop case and on a plane wherever I'm going, just to get started. And I'm assuming that somewhere on our GitHub, we're gonna have links so that people know what hardware to have as well. And that might already be up there and I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, that is on the hardware page, on the header of the hardware page.
And it's on the demo that we're going to show you.
But we're
Excellent.
also wildly changing that, because you'll notice that Derek's using the Grove hardware, which is connected, which I very much like more than the breadboards.
Yeah, and I'm going to be using that in a workshop in GDevCon NA. There's Friday there'll be a workshop. It's actually I'm gonna.
So where is GDevCon
Over-
NA? And
This is
while you're
all
talking
the
about it, Derek,
hardware.
what is GDevCon NA?
So GDevCon NA is a community-driven LabVIEW programming event, and it gets into some test stand and vision and some other stuff as well. But it's a fully community-run LabVIEW convention primarily. And there'll be a bunch of technical talks. People will be showing off projects that they do. Vendors give demos, stuff like that. And usually there's a workshop at the beginning and end of GDevCon, and I'll be doing some using the CTI software, so the CTI firmware and hardware. I'm not going to be doing the lessons because presumably everybody at GDevCon NA already is exposed to LabVIEW. But just kind of getting into hobbyist level projects and getting people exposed to CTI, and they're going to get to walk away with a bunch of hardware. So for a $100 ticket, which is basically the cost of all the hardware, they get to keep all of it, walk away with it. It's not like a CREO or a CDAC that costs thousands of dollars. And then start getting people involved in using the CTI stuff, because once people start using it, that's when they get their opinions and the feedback comes in, and we can start figuring out what people are interested in using it for.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, Derek, because I think somebody, Norm, as the LabVIEW evangelist, basically Derek is going to be training your army of individuals who will go out and do even more hands-on sessions, is what this looks like.
That's
I think
the
it's
goal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a twist. I think Derek and I got into it not in a bad way, but just started teasing apart this idea of, Derek has big dreams, hopes, and visions for all that the CTI firmware, basically the Pi Pico or the microcontroller firmware, is capable of facilitating. And then there's the idea of, hey, what are we trying to do with the CTI, big T in that CTI, right? And so there's, as we go through and we evolve what's enabled or hardware sets or anything else like that, right? I think that point of what is this thing? Well, this thing is starting to grow into kind of a starting point for you to do other things, as well as being the platform for training. And so as conversations, as you watch and you learn, as anybody's getting involved with this, keeping that in the back of your mind can help. I don't know. I need to keep that in the back of my mind anytime I hear a conversation or talk about whatever's going on. That the things that we have,
the thing to keep in
not
the thing to keep in mind about that is the microcontroller part of the hobbyist toolkit, the thing that lets you use Arduinos and I forget what some of the other chips are. That hasn't really been updated. It's difficult to add new targets to. So for the thing that I'm excited about, which Steve alluded to in the beginning, ultimately, if I create a sustainable replacement for the microcontroller part of the hobbyist toolkit, I will feel very good about myself and feel successful. And it's about expanding to newer, more powerful hardware platforms that are way cheaper than Arduino started out at, 15 years ago. Even so,
could we take a slight step back from the? I see the firmware code. Could you just pop up a bit of the LabVIEW code where
we're seeing your OBS instance, not just your screen.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you show like the a LabVIEW
about now?
low level Visa
That's better.
call, just to show the all we're doing is sending text to Visa.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that'd be great to see.
Let me turn on this other camera quick, just
Then
so
we
we
can
can
do
watch
firmware.
it go. So this is going to be a pretty simple little, and I got to restart LabVIEW. Living in the desert, the high desert in the mountains, static electricity is a problem. Every time I move my chair, LabVIEW loses the ability to talk to my Pico.
Oh really? Oh, that's it, is it?
That's every time I stand up, I have to restart LabVIEW.
People, we need
That's
to,
probably a USB.
We need to pitch
Yeah.
in and hi, Derek and Auntie
Static
She-
Matt.
That's all right. I'm back up.
Anti-static,
used to
I
use-
just-
anti-static mat.
At the beginning of this call, I ordered one on Amazon.
Yeah, okay. So we don't have to
At the
pitch in
beginning
for
of
it
this
anymore.
call, not 2 days ago.
Yeah.
There we go.
There's no product in his hair. He just has a massive
that's
static. It's just-
Okay. So, y'all should be able to see the LED that I can change the speed it's pulsating at, and it's
Oh,
just
there it
doing
is.
some
Okay.
pulse width modulation to affect the light
Oh,
output
the
from it.
LED on the far
There it
left, by
is.
the way. If
Yeah.
you didn't see it.
So under the hood, if we look at this, I'm not going to look at this first one because there's kind of a whole bunch that has gone into that. But for updating, actually, let's look at where I'm changing the duty cycle.
Do you want to
Behind
turn
your
your
video, maybe turn off your
It's-
video.
yeah, behind
yeah,
the-
one
yeah.
of your cameras is in the way, mate.
Your webcam.
Thank you.
We don't need to watch that anymore. There you
I'll
go.
get motion sick. It's on an arm, so it shakes a little bit. But when we look at this, we're
There you go.
generating a string. So this is going to be PWM and then a number, duty, and then what the new duty cycle is going to be from 0 to 1. It's just a little single floating point number.
And that little visa, if you
So
dig
can
down,
you
it's
zoom
one
in a
more.
little bit, Derek?
Sure can.
If you go
Awesome.
to the Visa Dev VI and just dip down there, eventually you will find that it's just a standard right, Visa right. So there's nothing
One
fancy
more
going
layer.
on. There you go. So it's just a Visa right.
There you go. Bingo.
So
And I think
that's the
part of
primitive.
that's part of the brilliance is everybody from the LabVIEW community. I mean, I think I taught my first LabVIEW class, I think it was in 89. Like Fabiola, like I always say, I was 5 years old, child prodigy. A Skippy is a standard thing. You send the string to the instrument, you get the string back. And then we also, a lot of our students will actually be doing NI DAC, so that they're going to be talking to hardware with a slightly different driver. But out of the box, some of the first exercises that you do in the CTI is just super duper basic and simple. Turn that LED on about 15 minutes after your download's complete. Isn't that about right, Fabiola? Download's done, LED is going on in about 15 minutes.
Oh, that depends how fast you wire your breadboard, but yeah.
That's true. That's the slowest part is wiring the breadboard.
Yeah,
I've taken seconds out of that. Look, just
Yeah.
plug it in. I'll show you. That'll be my demo.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of the point of the groove.
the slow part is downloading the VM, and then the wiring the breadboard. Everything else is really, really quickly. And I'm gonna take this opportunity to teach you all Spanish. You know how you say little light bulb in Spanish? And when
You're
I
about to
when
tell
I
us.
say it, it sounds like a curse word, but I swear it's not a curse word.
But don't get
Poquito,
Tim cursing again.
poquito,
Ito.
poquito.
Poquito.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good to know. That will come in handy one day. So Fab, speaking of Spanish, and we'll come back to firmware, talking a little bit more about the group, but I do want to shift a little bit. Kind of keeping an eye on time here. We do have a hard stop with a lot of our team members today. Talk a little bit about the process for updating the documentation. So when Sam and I teach again, or we're teaching using the CTI content, or maybe we've woven some of the NI content in the CTI content, and there's a typo in there, or we want to add a little bit more extra information to help the students. What does that process look like?
So I'm going to show first a quick tour, and then Tim is going to show us live. He's going to submit something. But if
It's
you
all
go
right.
to
We already have something submitted.
Yeah, and he already has. Okay. So if you go to LabVIEW Community Training, by the way, we keep saying CTI. CTI stands for Community Training Initiative. I don't think we had to spell it out until now. Your code is here on the Getting Started LabVIEW English. And one of the things that I took the executive decision to do is to move the documentation to the CTI documentation so we could leverage different languages. But there are two places where you can get to that documentation. If you come here, you basically just go to LabVIEW Community Training GitHub, and that takes you to the setup instructions. And you have here all step by step, like what you saw Steve doing earlier, it's here. And you have a table of contents down here, so you can go and see what is it that you need to do for installing the drivers, for example. And one of the things that you see is we have different languages. So I can switch to Espanol, and now this is in Spanish. Or
That is fantastic. Sam, you got a question, comment real quick.
I was going to say, so the documentation then is this documentation in particular is independent of the particular course, right? This is just like the setup for the initial thing.
Yeah, this is the proof of concept, and this is the part where Steve, Olivier Jordan, maybe Nancy and I need to get together and do the architecture, because once you start using, this is one of the things, is that once you start using your documentation as code, which is what we're doing, we're using Markdown, we also need to do some organizing, right? And architecture design. It's not just code and fix. So this is a proof of concept showing that we do have the different versions. We can show, version 2.0 or the version 1.0. And in this case, we right now have a single training, which is the LabVIEW training. Eventually, we'll have more trainings, and Steve can talk a little bit about those. So how do you contribute? Well, here's a big page that says how to contribute.
Fabiola, I got to ask a real quick question, though, just for clarification, because Steve started his download and then it finished 10 minutes later, maybe it's 30 minutes later. Does that also install all the course material for me? So if I'm a student and I just want to learn, is there anything else I have to install after that?
Yeah, you're going to have to go to the instructions on how to go to the first place that I show you here, which is you just go to code and then do download zip file.
Okay,
but all
great.
of those is explained on these instructions. And Enrique Noe Arias from Panther Lab, he has been helping me do some videos. So as soon as the new virtual machine is available on G Central, we'll make those videos public. And those videos will also have closed captions in different languages. But
So I'm
there's
going to take one quick rabbit trail, about 15 seconds. You mentioned G Central. Just so everybody knows, gcentral.org is a nonprofit that was kicked off maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, and they've tackled a variety of interesting things for the community. They're really passionate about the community, and I just wanted to make sure we did a quick plug for our friends over at G Central. So they are basically the ones that are hosting the image for the CTI.
So
Thanks, G Central.
Yeah, this is where the new one is going to be there, okay? And it hopefully is going to be less than 4 gigabytes. So, okay, so I was showing you the whole thing here. So how to contribute? You can go to the how to contribute here, and you have all the contributing to documentation, how you can edit, you can translate, and here's how to edit a page. So you need to have a GitHub account. You go to page that you want to edit, and then it says, click on the edit this. See how up here it says edit this page? Everybody sees that? That's how you can contribute. That's that easy. And then you'll do that, and we'll have team show us how to do it. But he already did one that I need to approve. So I'm going to show you the behind the scenes. He went and did that check-in for an edit. So I can go to the pull requests, and we have it waiting for you guys. And Olivier Jordan, by the way, he's great. He can give trainings on Git. He showed me a lot of these things. I'm not going to assume that, I'm not going to tell you that I just was born knowing all of this. So he added links to DigiKey for the PyPico and the breadboard. And I said, okay, this is looking good, but you need to put the URLs as a bullet list and not a star. And I even added a link to the ASCII doc documentation, because this is really good. It shows you how it's going to look on the Markdown and then how it's going to look like when it's rendered. And then he made that change, and I said, okay, this is good, but I think we should wait until we're with Steve on the this month in LabVIEW. So that's what we did, and this is where we're at. So because I have already reviewed it, I can say that I'm going to merge it, and
Well,
I'm just
show them that exact page first before you actually do it.
before I do it. Oh yeah, you're right.
The before and after.
Yeah, so I can show the, thank you for reminding me. So that would be the one that you modified was the setup instructions, and it was at the
Hardware.
bottom.
If you go down to hardware.
Yeah, so if I click on the hardware, yeah, so you can see like the URLs are kind of messy, right? and I don't think we had all of them there. So I am going to do the merge request. So confirm merge. And then one thing that Olivier Jordan did is, so if I go to pull request, we're going to see that we don't have any more pull requests. And then here on actions, this is the magic about using merge request. You can see that we have an action going. And we're going to wait for this thing to be done. It normally doesn't take long. It's already telling us that it's on the publish page part.
What we see from the previous ones is about 2 minutes is what it took.
Yeah. So yeah, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. So that's probably
So real
about
quickly, while we're waiting on that, Tim, we haven't had a chance to really have you speak real quickly to what you're excited about, what you're passionate about as it relates to CTI, because you put a lot of effort in here.
I would say I put a lot of effort into this effort. Exactly. I do have visions for having another repo for all the devices that we want to hook up to the Pico, like DIO chips,
Peripherals.
yeah, all these peripherals that we have. Like I want to make a repo for those so that they're just available and we can just use them, and they already have the drivers built on top of the LabVIEW driver that
Tim,
Derek already made.
have you seen Arduino IDE's library manager?
No, I have not.
What I'm aiming
I am
for.
not. So
Okay, before we get back into hardware, Fabiola, you want to? Do we know if that change has shown up yet?
it's almost
still in
there.
progress.
Oh, it's still in progress. Okay, I now I gotta
But one
see
thing
the little.
I want to show you, Nancy, and one of the things that I did while that's going on, one of the things that I did is on the course manual, this is on version 2, I believe it's here. Steve changed to have 2 wiring diagrams. One was for Ratza and the other one was for the Pico. And first you had to go and link to another page to see that wiring. So I figured there should be a way to do this thing. But I had no idea how to do it on AsciiDog. So I just went to Google, and I'm not going to tell you that I knew it was collapsible. So I did something like expand text. There it was, expand AsciiDog text. And immediately I saw, collapsible blocks. That's exactly what I need. So I had the example of how it's written, and then it shows you how it renders. And I was like, but I don't want it to say details. I wanted to say Pico, and I wanted to say Raxa. Oh, you just scroll down further and it tells you how to do it. So this is how you're going to be doing the formatting that I know you want to contribute to. So let's go back and see if this still, okay, it's done. So now we should be able to go to, that was version 1 you did it for, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So if I go to the hardware now, maybe I need to do shift
refresh again. It might be cached too.
There you go.
There you
So
go.
here,
There you are.
Nice.
so it's much better, right?
That's huge. That is absolutely huge. So I'm doing a little time check. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I'm going to need the last 2 minutes, I think, maybe the last minute. So
But can I also
Fabiola,
emphasize that all my editing there was done inside the GitHub. I did not have to do anything on my computer itself. It was all on the website.
That is priceless. And
yeah, we have time at the end. We can show you that. We were supposed to show that, but I guess I took a lot longer than I should have.
Yeah. That has come so far, Sam, from where we were in kind of that August time frame. And thank you for figuring out all those details out, because I really didn't have time to. So I am really, really thrilled at what you guys have done. And it looks so professional. We could talk more about that, definitely, but let's shift kind of back into firmware and hardware, a little bit about LabVIEW in a box. So I want to make sure, Steve, you got a little bit more time, Derek, and then Norm, if you've got any more comments, either on the hardware or otherwise side, please pipe up, and John as well. So now it's total free for all, but let's kind of do hardware, firmware, and whatever else you guys want to squeeze in.
Well, first of all, I'm going to go and let me take those off. I'm just going to set this one off. So this is the image we just installed. So if I start him off, it'll start loading, and I'll then flip a camera over to have a look at hardware.
A quick note on the getting started experience and Fab's making different content, but in terms of if you just have a computer and the Pico getting started. That was the video that I had put out previously. So it's not about the VM. The VM is part of the CTI ethos. But if you don't need the VM to get started and you've already got LabVIEW and you're like, I want to do the CTI thing, but I don't need the VM. I've already got it. That was the training that's up on YouTube. That point, look for LabVIEW CTI getting started, and it directs somebody towards that dimension of it.
Windows or Linux?
That's a Windows one. So
perfect.
Yes,
now I don't have to do that video. Thank you.
Well, no, and the videos that Enrique and I put together are also showing both Linux and Windows, and all the way to the VM.
Excellent.
Okay. So the future. This is probably what I'm looking at for lesson 2. So what we have here, and you've seen Derek see it, is a Grove board. So that was about £3.
So
the
what is
Pico
a Grove board for people that don't know anything about Grove?
It's just an interconnect board, and it's
got
Grove
standardized connectors and wiring.
Yeah, so it's a 4-pin connector that gives you.
It's not a Grove board, right? Grove is the company.
No,
it's
Seed
a
is the
breakout.
company.
Grove is the standard.
Grove is the standard. Okay.
Seed is the company.
Yeah.
Okay. And
with lots of
Grove
E's.
is the standard
with 3 E's.
Breakout.
Yeah, 3 E's. So to give you an example, this is going back to you get there as quick as possible. So what they've got is this. There's reasons why this is interesting. First things first, they do a kit, which is the kit that Norm had, and that kit comes with training materials. It's Python, but it's training materials, which is kind of handy because if you're debugging comms, like I can always go back to sort of the original and see what the waveforms look like, which you can see all of us are playing with waveforms. So we're debugging and testing the stuff that Derek's providing, but we're testing it against stuff that already exists. But you can see here what they're doing. This is their courses. So if we take one of their courses and have a look,
Steve, I'm going to interrupt just real quick because I am keeping a track on time. Who all has to drop at the top of the hour? I think Tim, you had to head out. Norm heads out.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Norm, can't wait for more videos. Tim, thanks for your contributions. Looking forward to seeing where this goes. So if you guys drop off, thank you again. And now we'll continue here for probably about another 10, 15, not quite 15 minutes. Sorry about the interruption, Steve. Keep going.
That's right. The biggest danger with interrupting me is I'm very old now and I'll just forget what I was talking about.
You were talking about the Grove and the connectors.
So here's an example. This is the project, their example, which was it's got a LCD monitor screen and a little dial. So LCD screen, little dial. So let's go and plug him in. So if I just go, I have to remember which plug's the which.
So while Steve does that, I'm going to put my final piece in here, if I can, before I go through some
please
shoes
do.
on.
Yes.
So just one, I mean, there's so much here, like I said, and I'm quasi doing the representation from it, carrying the mantle inside to try to figure out how to leverage this and support it the best. When it does come down to the original mantra of learn this as free, ideally, or cheap as possible, a lot of the hardware peripherals like the Grove kit, the Seed kit with the Grove breakout that has the Grove wires, right? It's more expensive than, right? You need another $100 on top of possibly your Rasda single board computer or anything else like that. And so I think there's different dimensions that as we talk about this and as we expand peripherals, we're all getting excited with, we can play with more, we can play with more, we can play with more. But there's also we can't lose sight of the as cheap, as simple, as free as possible and keeping that there, which is why I'm kind of jumping up and down on my $17 kit here versus the very much more attractive, better kit out that the Seed Studios provides with what's there.
So let's do some costs. That was £6. So that's $7.
Oh, I guess I'm looking at
that is $3. That is $4.
That kit that we have there is the larger one. So that's okay. Yeah. That there I think was the one that was more expensive that Derek's.
This was $35.
The whole kit. If you get the kit
with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
This whole
Okay, so
box
that's
was
better than the one that I
$35.
got. I just kept seeing $100 put out there, but that's great. So I think that
You gotta
still
buy it from China and wait a couple of extra days for it to ship.
Yeah. I paid for this bag of bits, the bag of bits. I paid £29 for, and that's got everything that you need to explore stuff. But you can see here, there's no wiring pins out. This is just a couple of connectors, plug them in, and you can see here this is reading analog and displaying it to the world. So that example is very, very quick, very easy.
So Steve, I got a quick question for you on those pins, because when Sam and I were teaching CU Boulder, I bought a bunch of stuff just so that the students could have some different sensors to play with, and different vendors had slightly different pins. So are there does this work with certain vendors of all the peripherals and not others, or?
Well, I bought myself for
Okay, perfect.
£3 from eBay some Grove connectors.
Excellent.
I
That's
bought
all.
myself
For us in the
$12
States,
from
Mauser or
Alibaba,
DigiKey.
infrared camera,
Nice.
and I've plugged him in. I mean, it's very bad, but it is all feasibility. And I've bought myself, and I can't get it working yet.
This is the
Really
type of
Laura
shopping
radio.
I get excited about. This is the type of shopping I get excited about. Not what
Yeah.
my girlfriends get excited about.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
Grove
coming.
is an
It's
open
coming together.
standard,
So
so
I'm
we
trying
can-
to do all the feasibility
Oh,
stuff so that
okay,
we can.
Tim, you got to go soon, but I want to make sure. I'm sorry.
But Grove is an
Tim,
open
what you just said
standard, is what I
important.
was. Grove is an open standard, so anyone can
Okay.
use it and add to it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a ground. It's 3.3 volts, and it's 2 pins to do with whatever you do. So they could be 2 GPIO. It could be the clock and the
I2C.
data. Blah
The
blah.
only thing that doesn't fit is SPI.
Yeah, SPI doesn't
Yeah.
fit.
So speaking of, we haven't really talked about the different communication protocols. You guys want to speak to that a little bit, and what is already currently built in and what you're adding, and then kind of also a little bit of what are some of the protocols that we might not have yet. Maybe some drivers that look like NI-DAC, but tell us where we are in the communication protocols, and then a little bit on future stuff.
The bit
so
that
you can-
excites me is I squared C. I squared C gives you access to all sorts of things. All sorts of things. Driving these LCD screens, sensors, A to D, really good A to D converters, so you can take really good measurements if you really wanted to. I mean, it's just a world of chips essentially you can talk to. These are kind of chip level, board level protocols, and they just give you access to lots of things you can build stuff out with, and it's cheap. It's an inexpensive protocol.
I got a quick question on protocols, and Tim, I want to make sure you get in here as well. Is what about CAN? I'm going to be living in the automotive world, so that's what I'm wondering about.
Not from the Pico, but some of the Adafruit boards have CAN drivers as part of the board.
Oh, now
Excellent.
I'm going to go looking. Hold on, right? I'll stop sharing, and then while you're talking, I'm going to go and look and see if there's an I squared C to CAN converter, because I bet there is.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah, I'm
nice.
sure there is.
Yeah, I'd be one to bet there is.
And if not,
surprised.
there's UART converters. We've got UART,
Yep.
we've got SPI, we've got
Yeah.
I squared C. So we've got all the basic
Perfect.
interconnects
Yeah.
that are available on every microcontroller chip. So it's really just about using the low-level functionality available in the CTI drivers and building a LabVIEW layer that can talk to anything.
Yeah, it's just very, very good.
So it really is LabVIEW to everything.
Yeah, and
That's
for
the goal.
pennies. I mean, I was looking for an I squared C kit so I could test it, and it was like anything from 50 quid to 800 quid to just get something to talk I squared C, so that I could just look at a signal. This is $4. $4.
So
You
run
got
those
two.
numbers. Run those numbers by us again. It was anywhere from how much to 800?
50 quid to 800 to get LabVIEW to talk I squared C.
$50 to 800.
Yeah,
$50 to $800.
Yeah, and this
And then
is
now you got
$5.
four.
You got a couple of
COM ports, torque I squared C. It's
Now, I have a
Here's
question that I think Norm is going to
Nice.
appreciate. If you're doing a big project for a customer, would you still use this hardware or would you go with a nice hardware?
That's a great question. I've been pondering on this one in general, and so here's the twist. So
I think
these are
it's better that someone that's not an I answers, but okay, I want to hear the NI answer.
Oh, no. Well, I'll set a timer for myself. From the NI answer, as far as this pondering on this reality, these are microcontrollers, right? At the core of it, they're just raw microcontrollers. So there's reasonable belief that you should be able to get a microcontroller and it's just going to work. So is that thing going to work? But I would say that Derek, what are you paying for by paying for more? Like with a lot of NI stuff, people get, people are like, oh, NI is more expensive for X, Y, Z. It's the driver experience and the features that are built into it. There's a lot of
even
effort
on
put
the
into
hardware
that
side.
well,
It's
let that.
the
I'm not even getting to
protection.
that, right? If we look to
I mean, I think that's the question. When will
Robustness
use
and
this
support, right?
versus like a USB DAC
right, there's
that
a
NI
big
sells?
difference
And the answer is the
between
protection circuitry that you get with it.
Yeah, the
there's
robustness
what
and
you
the
get on the
support.
USB DAC. There's that, right? There's a lot of stuff around it that you're not getting on that small microcontroller board that you need to be the analog engineer or be married to Fabiola's husband to go ahead and have your own engineer at home to create circuit boards to connect onto that, to have a reliable setup that doesn't cause the glitching that Derek was seeing every time that he touches his desk and goes, and it screws
and
up.
if you need to see everything we do now, it has to be CE marked. That goes into a factory in Europe has to be CE marked. This stuff, this hobbyist stuff, isn't CE marked, and that's if you're building
It is
one
the
offs.
best to learn.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's not already in the industry, I think this is the best way to learn. And the protocols and everything that you learn here will translate to an industry base. But I think it is important to remind people that you're not going to be able to do the stuff we now do commercially with this hardware.
Well,
So I'm
even if the
gonna
hardware
get
can
us.
do
I'm
it-
gonna kind of Sam
I
go, and then
recognize
I'm
the
gonna.
honorable delegate.
even if
I
you do
have
it
some
so
that to
hard,
that too.
you don't have the support. If your Pi Pico is talking to your I2C thing and it breaks, who are you going to call? The Pi Pico people aren't going to answer your question. If you have an NI device, you can call up NI and get support and help. So I think that's a huge thing on its own.
So I'm gonna tack off of that, and I'm gonna man, I knew it was gonna be chaos. Corralling this group of cats is crazy and so much fun. We could talk forever on all of these topics, but regardless of the hardware, I mean, this is like I said, this is the same software stack essentially that is using that many companies are using to launch rockets, maybe even land something on the moon. It's the same philosophy of instrumentation. It's the same software stack, and it's great that kids anywhere on the planet can start contributing to these huge, engineering endeavors. So, on that note, some of us have to hit some different meetings, and there's so many more things we can talk about. But I want to make sure everybody has a quick 30 seconds on your last couple of thoughts here before we head out. John, what is in your head right now? What are you thinking, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, so I'm really I haven't done a huge amount for the project so far, but it's fun to get involved, and I really like these open source things. But yeah, my interest is speaking of like affordable, somewhat ubiquitous hardware, bringing webcam based vision into LabVIEW as part of CTI training. So that's what I'm trying to work on with Steve and probably a couple of other people as we expand the training courses to have that as an option. So that is going to
be a great vision module that you'll be pulling together for the course. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, should be
Tim.
fun.
Yeah, Tim.
I think I'm more on the Derek side, where I'm more interested in the hobbyist aspect of it. I'm entering the hobbyist world, I guess you could say, and I'm having a lot of fun just playing with this Pico. I mean, the thing I have right here, I plan on replacing a C-Rio with, or replacing. This will replace a C-Rio and a test system if I ever get to redo a test system. I know Norm doesn't like that, but it's a lot cheaper. And we already have the circuitry that we care about to protect it and whatnot. So we'll have that on our design side, so I'm fine with that.
So what
But
about
yeah,
your
just
kids? Have you taught your kids LabVIEW yet? And are they going to help you with these projects?
not yet. My son, who's now 10, he's getting into Scratch. So I think some some leeway getting into that one. He's now starting to program. My middle child, 7, is just wants to make pictures on Scratch is all she wants to do with it. But they're trying to do the animation sides. But yeah, I see where I can possibly get LabVIEW in from that aspect is what I'm looking at. And if I can have some cool things happen, that'd work even better with it.
Awesome.
Then my 2-year-old is just learning to count, so
There you go. Get the 2-year-old programming LabVIEW first. Forget language. Start
One
programming.
wire, two
Sam.
wire, blue wire, orange wire.
Could I,
Yeah,
could I just as you're rounding
Yeah.
out, Nance, I'm going to share my screen, and as we round out, I'll just do the final virtual machine stuff.
Oh
Multitask.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
never to get back to the
Um,
virtual machine.
Go on, you carry on talking, and I'll just
so
do
Sam,
my bit.
I want to make sure you get some final thoughts in.
Yeah. I was just gonna say one thing I have to do is check out the Grove stuff. I have not done that. I have the old CTI hardware. I'm kind of excited about doing the software engineering, the refactoring, the testing, and TDD, but having cheap hardware that people can interact with. Because one of the challenges is it's easier to refactor code or unit test code that doesn't talk to hardware. So integrating that I think is useful. And also I like the CI/CD with the doc stuff. I got to look a little closer at how they're doing that with the anti-doc. I kind of have some ideas because I know how it would work in GitLab, but seeing how it works in GitHub and seeing exactly how they have it set up, I think is interesting.
We're using Antora, so go check that out.
Yeah, I'm sure I can dive into it and figure it out. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then you need to let us know how your training goes, and Norm as well. The training goes at CU Boulder on Friday, because then you guys are going to be using the really awesome hands-on material that David Preda put together, which is done differently than how we kind of did CTI. But we'll want to be thinking about how do we kind of merge some of this, in a future state, maybe 6 to 9 months down the road. But I'm excited to hear about how that goes. So outstanding, Derek.
I'm excited to see where this train flies off the rails. I think one of the things that hurts the LabVIEW community is because of how it is used and licensed and paid for in professional environments. There's a dearth of code available for the really impressive things people can do with LabVIEW. So getting, there's the weather monitoring station example that ships with LabVIEW, which just generates some random numbers and sine waves to do some stuff. But what if we redid that with CTI and had that available as an example? What if for active framework or DQMH lessons, they showed how you can encapsulate driver interactions and hardware interactions and have hardware that does stuff. So I'm really excited about where this is going to go. And again, like Tim said, my excitement is the hobbyist community. The training is fantastic and is critical for having a pipeline of future LabVIEW developers and ensuring I have job security into the future, because LabVIEW is still a good thing to do. So that is definitely priority number one. But getting other people using it is where we're going to get the really exciting features and the feedback and hopefully get this going somewhere awesome.
I agree with you 100%, and it's just been perfect timing with the CTI and NI's, moving that ship a whole 180 faster than I could ever imagine with this refocusing. As Norm mentioned, that Ratu said, we are the LabVIEW company. My son's a mechanic, and I am super excited to see what we can do with a CAN interface moving forward in the future. So going to be a lot of fun there. Let's see. As Steve is finishing this out, Fab, I want to make sure you have a last couple minutes.
So one of the things that we didn't mention is the new VM comes with BIPM included. And there were certain decisions that had to be made on terms of size of the VM. And one of the things is that it's going to take a little longer to launch BIPM. But on the videos that we're going to launch, I'm going to show how to install DQMH. And that's a preview that one of the trainings that we're going to do is an introduction to DQMH on CTI. So
I'm super excited about that. it's going to be a great year. I was a little distracted with getting my family moved and job stuff, and so I haven't really touched the CTI too much until the last couple of days again. But you guys have brought it so far. And John, I think you mentioned a good point. You're like, well, I haven't been super involved. Now is the time to get involved. So, Steve, I know you're going to put some stuff. Oh my gosh, somebody is so cute. Steve, I know you'll put some stuff on when the video goes out, so people know where to find, the Discord channels and can reach out to us. But Steve, I want to make sure you get some. Anybody else a final say before Steve? All right, I'm going to close this out, Steve, right after you have your final comments right here.
Well, one, I'm gobsmacked by people coming on this journey with us. But also you'll see this VM. I've loaded it. I've just plugged my Pico into it. I've passed it through, and it can see my Pico. And that's just as we were talking. That was installed, ready to go. And so there's a nice little thing here.
Did you want to show something? I'm not seeing the.
Oh, sorry, I've stopped sharing, didn't I?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
I did show it as we were
So,
chatting,
Steve,
didn't I?
make sure that when you go through the massive editing process that you do for this month in LabVIEW, that you edit that little piece out.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. You get honesty here. That's all you get.
Yeah,
That's not
Um,
get
for
rid of all
November,
Nancy
for all
swearing
year
at the
long.
beginning.
Oh, no, Tim, you were swearing more than I was. All right, keep going.
Well, here's the Visa interactive.
Back, the activation was not working. One of the things that we have been suggesting to people is sign on, log into NI before you activate LabVIEW, and that works much better.
Yes.
Yeah,
Keep your
I
web browser
didn't,
open
I
when you
didn't
do
that
that.
just because I didn't want to type out all my login details on
Keep your web browser open, log into NI first. Steve?
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, it's just nice. It just works. The links are around,
Fantastic.
and it's good to go. So yeah.
Awesome.
it's
Well,
just get the current flavor of get the current flavor of software when the time comes, Derek, and we go from there.
Yep.
Bye.
So thank you all. Thank you, John, Tim, Norm, Fab, Derek, Steve. I think I got everybody. I will have one last thing.
Don't forget
just so
Sierra.
everybody knows, the GDevCon NA is in Chicago sometime in July. So join us out there. Even if you're relatively new to LabVIEW, you'll get plugged into the community. You're going to learn a lot, and you'll have a chance to do hands-on Friday. And there's one other idea I'm going to leave us with, and that is, I think we should have, and I'm willing to sponsor it, a booth, a CTI booth at GDevCon NA. So those of us that are going to be there, we can just be hanging out at the booth. People have questions, they can come talk to us. So if you guys like that idea, let me know. I'm 99% sure I'll be there, and I'm happy to sponsor having a booth. And I think we're going to have a setup there where it's pretty roomy, and we'll have a lot of those at GDevCon. So closing out.
One more thing, Nancy. I just got
thing.
confirmation yesterday that we will have space for CTI at NI Connect as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Great news. So NI Connect, not in Austin. It's going to be in Fort Worth. You're going to love it. It's in April, sometime in April. And then I think we've got GDevCon Australia coming up in May. A lot of exciting events.
I'll be there.
What's that?
You'll be there.
I'm going to be there too. I'm fairly certain I'll be there. So thank you, everyone. Reach out to any of us on social media if you got questions. We've been doing this for a while, and we're just excited to do what we can to help all the new engineers on board and continue to create in LabVIEW. So thank you, Steve Watts, the professor of pragmatism, my other conspirator, Sam Taggart, the architect of adventure, and I'm Nancy Henson, the chief of Connected Conversations. And if I can corral this group, I can corral any group. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy, for trying to corral us.
Perfect.
Are you still
She
recording?
can't handle us.
I'm sure it was made.